Hello and welcome back to Tracking Trends. Now we have some clarity on how the deal with United States is going to look like. The framework agreement, which is called the interim agreement, has been released for public scrutiny. And in the days to come, the details would be baked in further, and we will have a draft that both sides will sign in, following which there will be an executive order, and the provisions of the agreement, the interim agreement, will start taking effect. Lots of analysis and evaluations have already come in through various media channels. We are not going to be reiterating or focusing on those things today. We're going to be looking at the larger picture, the big picture, and asking the question, now that we have a deal with the European Union, we have the deal with Australia, we have a deal with Japan, and now we have an interim agreement with United States. Is there a strategic thread running through all these agreements? Is there a bigger game plan, or can there be a bigger game plan? What could be the broad contours of that game plan? Some of these questions, these larger questions, are what we are going to be discussing today. I have with me Arpita Mukherjee, who is a professor at the Indian Council for International Economic Relations, Indian Council for Research in International Economic Relations, ICRIER. It's a leading think tank of the country, and she has been on our shows before, and she will be taking us through the details. She will be giving us some in-depth insights today. Stay on. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do subscribe, spread the word around. Welcome back, Arpita.
Hello.
So we now have a framework agreement. Let's go straight to the topic of the day. How does it look like in the larger scheme of things?
See, basically, Rajesh, they have clearly said that it is an interim agreement. So you can develop upon it to add more things to a broader trade agreement. So this is a first big stepping stone that both sides have decided to come to a small kind of a mini deal. This is not a surprise because India has done a mini deal with Australia before. India has also done an early harvest with Thailand. This is the concern with this deal probably is that how it will go through the own internal processes because it is more like an executive order in the US, and then how compliant it is with the WTO framework. However, there is no doubt that this is one of the best deal that US has given to any country in the region, which it is claiming. Especially the less developing countries. I'm not comparing it with the Japan and the European Union and the others, but it also has a significance because we were one of the high tariff country in their list, like 50% tariffs. So 50 coming down to 18, somewhere within the deal, if you read, the word oil is not mentioned. Energy security is mentioned. The word oil is not mentioned in the fine prints of the White House, whatever they have put in public domain, a joint statement. The word dairy is not mentioned, which is very sensitive for India. The word GMO is not mentioned. So the very carefully drafted agreement, which looks like a White House announcement but has a lot of things of India's concern not touched, is, I think, is a very, very good step.
Now, you said you outlined what are the good takeaways for India as they look like as of now. But you start off by saying two very important things, that there are still concerns. And then the second issue is that to what extent this is WTO compliant. So let me ask you, what are your concerns?
My main concern is the respect for any trade deal which is of this nature, because if you look at US and Japan had a deal, they ignored the deal, they went for a higher tariff. US with Vietnam has a deal, that ignores the deal, goes for higher tariff on Vietnam, then they renegotiate. So a deal doesn't ensure long term security, which has been seen in the last 1 year with the US changing its position even with partners with whom they have FTA. So FTA is not a very secure kind of ceiling with US in the current scenario. And given that the WTO dispute mechanism is not working, you are not able to kind of you have to you have to agree or disagree mutually. You don't have a platform to go to. In this situation, it is always better to look at things in a very geostrategic and friendly way and get whatever you have goodies as of now.
So, what you're essentially saying, what the US President Donald Trump has offered you today, it is as good as it lasts. He can change his mind anytime. He can go back on the things that he has agreed, which means the US will go back on things that they have agreed, which is what we have seen actually happening with a few countries with whom they actually already signed an agreement. So that's a big concern, right? So it is interim. Now, how it evolves into a final agreement or how it doesn't evolve into a final agreement, both possibilities are very much there, and that should be a matter of concern. That should be something we should keep in mind and be alert to it all the time, right? Now, where
Right.
where is this deal? Where do you find it? It may not necessarily be WTO compliant, which is why there is an additional layer of complication that gets added.
See, WTO says that you can do FTAs provided it is very comprehensive and it covers a lot of things. However, of late you will see it is not only US. However, of late you will see countries tend to do pretty light FTAs and some do very extensive FTAs. But FTAs pattern is changing, and so this would be
FTAs
talk
you mean
about
FTAs you mean free trade agreements.
free trade agreements. Now, what America used to do is that they have to first, they agree to do a deal, then the deal goes to through a proper channel of consultations between in-house consultations, like the European Union deal is going to the European Union Parliament for consultations, then it gets sealed, and then it becomes a deal. Now that process is no longer operating because it is like emergency power and things like that that is happening within the US own official system, for which there are also, you may know that there are also challenges happening in the Supreme Court, that whether they are valid or not. It's not about us deciding the validity of the deal, it is on their side. They internally they are thinking it is valid or not valid, or what needs to be done, whether it is emergency. If you put a tariff on, whether you can use the emergency clause to put a tariff on textile and leather goods, these are very important things. And whether they are national security threat itself, a negative trade balance itself is a national security threat or not. These are internal discussions even within the US, and those results of those internal discussion is not out. What is good for us is that businesses on both sides, because it is the largest export market for them, also it is a very big market because of the problems they are facing with China. For businesses of both sides, there is a strong interest to partner, and when businesses are interest to partner, they also lobby with their respective government to say that we need to be good with each other. So that is where I think the Indian and American businesses have to work at their level of partnerships. Governments have to work at the level that they are geostrategic partner, and they have to strengthen that. You cannot bully your partners all the time, and that is something that both sides need to look at. And I think India has done a good job of keeping patience, not panicking, and negotiating calmly and quietly.
Do you think we are being bullied?
I don't think so. If we had been bullied, we would have taken an action in August. We haven't taken that action. We have taken a calm action. We have stood firm, and we have aligned the European Union FTA and the budget, everything to a benefit of our exporters. I must put it, to the benefit of our exporters. And the concerns of our exporters have been ensured in both the UFTA and this FTA. And to certain extent, when this is out in public domain, the sensitivities to certain extent also looks addressed, because dairy is not mentioned. If you see the very sensitive terms that you went round, chicken leg, dairy, these words are not mentioned in this joint statement. So that shows that India has been able to keep up its stand.
But there are people who say it's not so much a reflection of our calmness. In fact, we were, on the contrary, they say we were desperate, and the US president just didn't have time and was not interested in taking time out to address our concern. And that's why it took so long. In fact, people who, I had another expert who is who quite closely works closely with American companies. He had to say this. He said that this deal has been prepared and readied 5 times. It's just that it didn't have things that Trump wanted, and later on Trump just lost interest. And it has taken the both sides to get Trump on board several months, and that's why it got delayed. So that's also another story. It's not so much of I mean, there are people who say it's not about calmness. And but coming back to what you said, uh,
Uh,
on
may
the
I
same,
add here?
yeah,
Sorry. May I add here, what your friend said is not totally wrong. Let me give you the context behind this. India and US were very close, because US asked for so many things which we did not want to give at that stage. Like to Trump, first time when he was here, we did not want a digital trade chapter. We did not want government procurement. So India and US carefully drafted, and they were very, very close to signing of a deal. So close that if you go to the tariff lines on during that period, you will see that everywhere apples have 30% tariff. American apple had 15% tariff. So nobody knew how much reduction was happening. And you may remember those Harley Davidson and other stories which were allowed in. So they were very close. But that time, what happened was that the Walmart Flipkart merger happened, and there was issues with the merger. And because there was issues with the merger, Trump reacted with a GSP withdrawal. And because of that, the deal could not get through. So the work was already done. So I may tell you that there is no too much of a new work needed. Secondly, with America, the new work is much less needed, because what they want is very clearly written in the USTR report. So you don't need to really identify what your partner wants. You know, and you build upon your reactions to the pressures that they put, whether a deal or a no deal. So both of them are there. However, the good part of this interim agreement is probably, which did not come in the earlier announcement, is to bring in digital trade. Without digital trade, a deal with the US does not matter a total benefit to our Indian technology sector and the US technology companies.
mm. So just for the benefit of our audience, could you elaborate a bit on why this segment of digital trade and what has been agreed upon there is so important?
Rajesh, in the WTO, there is a work program called Work Program on E-commerce. This work program was supposed to discuss all these digital trade issues under the garb of e-commerce, but digital trade is much wider. But in that work program, until recently, countries have not even been able to come to a common alignment on the definition of e-commerce. So what they did is, only one achievement that the work program delivered was that it is called something called a moratorium on custom duty. So if you are taking the e-commerce channel or an express channel, up till a certain point, in some countries, your product goes duty free. So you have a duty free access. Now, then US raised the issue that no, there has to be regulation because countries were implementing data localization requirement, security requirement, and others. Then they were, they were restrictions on source code and whatever. US then brought it that we have to negotiate something in a plurilateral framework. So that JSI was developed in the WTO. When JSI went a long ahead, suddenly US came out of it.
JSI. What is JSI?
JSI is called Joint Initiatives of E-commerce.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so it is
There are
like
lots of jargons
yes.
in
This
international
is a
trade.
lot of jargon in the e-commerce segment itself. Now, this working WPEC, the Working Party on E-commerce, does nothing but to renew the moratorium, which you will you will read in the newspaper, and every regulatory aspect and trade aspect has been decided under this JSI, joint initiatives of countries, which many countries have joined, and not America and not India and not Indonesia and not South Africa. So I'm giving you the names of those who stayed away and the names of the rest of the world: Japan, Australia, Singapore, you name it, inside there. Now, the problem here is that uh, the factor that was keeping America and others out was that China has also joined that. So data is a big issue to be shared with China, sensitive, but European Union is there. Now, JSI has also come out with a text. This text is not too bad from what India wants to do. India is doing that bilaterally. So, India, UK has a digital trade. I am hoping that you will have a digital trade, and in that, we are taking certain commitments in many of these. I don't know how far India will go to commitment with the Americans, but there are certain UN laws and regulations which the countries want to put in place. If you look at the current budget, it is already talking about going paperless. If you look at India, Korea, they are trying bilateral paperless. So the regulatory bodies acknowledges each other's, certifications and processes online, and there is a mobility online. This is a massive thing for businesses because it reduces their cost. Now last year there was a decision taken that that either you guys do something good within the framework of WEPC, or it gets resolved, but this working committee does not stay. So there is a big confusion that within the WTO framework what you can do with moratorium. Now, believe me, Rajesh, moratorium, we are only thinking goods. But imagine the set of IT services that we provide to the Americans. And suddenly Trump came and said, I have withdrawn moratorium. So now the moratorium is getting withdrawn. Digital taxes are coming onto the picture. So everybody wants to secure their digital trade. And in context of the digital trade, it will have goods, like laptop, phone, etc. It will have parts, and data center parts, etc. It will have services. Now the services component, there is ITA 1, which India has signed. ITA 2, India has not signed. It has a lot of consumer goods. But until this digital trade is sorted, you tend to run a situation with the Americans where they can also impose tariff on your IT software. What do you do then? So therefore, IT service. So therefore, a digital trade chapter, given that there is an uncertainty in the WTO, it is now very important for India to secure it with the key export market, which means US, UK, EU, Australia, and the works.
So, which basically means, on the one hand, we had given a temporary exemption from customs duties to services that are sold by companies like Amazon, Spotify in India. Uh, we will be making that moratorium permanent now, right? If I my understanding,
We have
it's
a de minimis. We have a de minimis, not services that are sold completely. We have a de minimis, which means 2.5 lakh or something, whichever is settled. De minimis exists when within that limit, if you are doing so. So that is, European Union has a de minimis. That is not a problem. The problem is that sometimes countries like India were pushing it on the grounds that it is just a goods trade. And our market, our trade partners were very open in technology and services. So I can be restrictive. My trade partner can be open. That was the world's view of America. That was even China's view of America, that I can do localization, I can do anything, I can take out a American company, but America will not protest because it is the world leader in technology. This is the first time that he has touched technology, both from the H1B visa angle, from the moratorium angle, scaring all the trade partners that, America can also become protectionist. And that is, I think, made all the trade partners think. And if you see, Indonesia went and signed a digital trade agreement. So everybody started, moving out of their own partnerships that they thought of lobbying partner in the WTO. So in Indonesia first walked out of the joint, some kind of partnership it had with South Africa and India, and closed the deal with the Americans. So India is also now looking at that option, and that option is a good option to look at because that is your export market.
Okay, so which means, I mean, if the outcome is positive on that account, now that you have a chapter included on digital trade, the fear of our IT companies that the services they export to America could at some point in time come under the tax ambit, that fear kind of gets addressed, right?
Rajesh,
If
I am talking about custom related tax. I'm not talking about domestic market digital tax. Okay, so GST can be imposed on Netflix. Okay, that is a
no, no,
different
no,
story.
no, no,
I'm
no,
talking
I'm talking about our IT companies
about.
offering services in the US. The
Yeah,
fear of
it can be subject to their local tax, but it is not subject to the tax that it is being exported. That is the ceiling that companies are trying to get through the trade. In trade, you can only stop any country anywhere from imposing restrictions on trade issues. Domestic regime prevails.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Got it. Uh, okay. So let's last one point. I will go back when we were talking about, you know, in every deal there has to be trust, and in every deal there has to be, from both sides, a sense of equal partnership or negotiating on par. But on the one hand, you had this framework agreement that got released alongside. The United States also released another statement, which almost bordered on a threatening language, that if you don't stop buying Russian oil directly or indirectly, the U.S. Secretary of State, who is the foreign equivalent of the Foreign Minister of America, Marco Rubio, would be empowered to invoke the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and decide on any course of action. So, so there is a threat that has also come alongside. Is that a fair thing to do when we are going into an agreement in good faith?
See, trade agreements are sometimes, you have to look at trade agreements as not always aligned with geostrategic interest. Let me put it. And sometimes we do say as developing countries that we we feel threatened. That is also not true, because when we went to the WTO and negotiated food security against trade facilitation, America was also feeling threatening. But it is not like that we don't threaten and they threaten. We may not come
No,
as
no, no,
strong
no.
as in our communication. Now, coming to your Russia problem, Russia and India have long term very good geostrategic relationships. Okay, let me come there. We have very good geostrategic relationship, and and Russia is also somewhere cushioning us from China. you have to understand that also, like, because we are good with Russia, we are part of BRICS, we get cushioned against China. And now the oil purchases, today they have talked about Russian oil, tomorrow they can talk about Iran oil. The oil purchase is something which they are talking about, but when you come to the nitty gritty of the agreement, it is talking about energy purchase from America. Now this entire, and but it hasn't said stopped by when.
Hmm.
Nobody, everybody is saying stop, stop, stop. But stop this year, stop this month, stop in the next 10 years. Nobody is talking about that. And that is probably the glamour of Indian negotiation and Indian ways, if we can continue to use the word stop. But until when is missing. And I think until when is the real catch of the term. So
Hmm.
we can always say shall endeavor to do, but do till when we don't know. And if you
Hmm.
look at the statement on the Russian side, they haven't reacted badly to that. They have said that we have not received any communication from India to that effect. A very friendly statement from the Russian side, which shows that this has been discussed. It is not a surprise for them. And geostrategically you can see a lot of things, like in the after FTA we said we will get so much million investment, they said. By when, what, wherever, these are very important things for us to
No,
think.
I take that, but what I was pointing to is just the language. It's like almost Protestants saying, we are going to be keeping an eye on you. It's like we are going to be putting you under surveillance. हम आपके ऊपर नजर रखेंगे. हाँ,
We are
आपके
already under their surveillance, otherwise they would not have put it. We are
हाँ,
already under the surveillance. That's why they confidently put those tags. So it is not that America doesn't do surveillance, huh? They have done surveillance in the past, they will do surveillance in the future. We were already under the surveillance. So for us, I don't think, for us it is a status quo. For us, of course, we cannot buy, maybe we have to reduce our oil purchase, and we were buying oil, reprocessing, reselling, that part may be reduced. So we may look into other options for redoing our trade things, like, but for the, I don't think there is a massive issue now. And if there was a massive issue, you
I mean,
would see.
I agree. I agree with you. I mean, if we lose that re-exporting business, it shouldn't bother us much because this is not a sustainable and long-term thing.
Hmm.
Instead, if we are able to deepen our export markets in goods that matter, that trade-off is acceptable. Anyway, let's just move over now. What we started off, we were not going to be getting preoccupied with only US. How does this kind of compare with what we have done with EU, Australia now? How all these pieces are coming together? Do you see pieces are coming together? Do you see a strategic thread in all of these acts? Are we able to build a trade arc with the most developed markets of the world? How is it panning out in your view?
See, basically, most countries have two or three tariff lines. Okay, if you look at the European Union, they have a tariff which is zero within themselves. Then they have with some core partners, and for rest of the world. India's tariff regime is very, very complicated. If you look at the document, it runs over 3,000, 4,000 pages, because you give different tariff line, different phasing out, different things to the each trade partner. So what you gave to the UK, you gave in whiskey, you gave it a little better in wine to the European Union. Now there is something called MFN. When two partners sign the agreement, there is something called MFN. MFN means if any of the partner gives anything better to anybody else, I am going to get it. Now in that this MFN clause is only there in the Australia agreement. So it was Japan asked for it, we did not give. For us, what is happening is that for us, every trade agreement, if it has to be upgraded. Now, if I go back to my old Japan and Korea agreement, they are pretty bad compared to the current ones. Now, if I want to go, I have to renegotiate. So it is a renegotiated deal. It is not an automatic bonus that you get on either side. So here the problem is that if these deals are very good, the question is why is Japan and Korea not asking for a renegotiation? That is the core question in my mind, and that is something we need to really think through. Then once this all these deals are in out, we need to really map them against one another to see where the which one is the best one, because as of now we are not able to understand the best deal. The best deal is not only in terms of its tariff reduction, but the phasing out has to be low. You know, if something is over 10 years and something is over 5 years, 5 is much better. Now, who gains, who loses is only going to come into the picture when we have everything in one plate. As of now, we don't have it. We don't have the picture of the European deal. We don't have the picture of the US deal. But we know that for sure, Australia is going to benefit, with the MFN without a deal but a mini deal. So, this is the situation we are in today. Japan is definitely not going to benefit as much, and Korea, because for them they have to renegotiate. Now whether they want to renegotiate, what they would renegotiate is a very very different thing. Now this is the first point. Second point is countries renegotiate according to their strength. They don't just sit and negotiate. So whatever is their strength, they will look into it and they will see if others have got it. Now if others have got it, they will ask for it. So it is quite a complex system that is going to come up with the American and the European deal once made public, and then you may need to revisit.
Hmm. In fact, I'm glad you brought this point up, because we have now gone on signing these FTAs. In the last 2 years now, we have signed 9 FTAs, and I haven't seen if at any point in time the government has made a comprehensive assessment of what impact all these FTAs that over the years that we have worked out. Uh, what we must be now having almost 2 dozen FTAs.
Yes, we have. They
Yeah.
do impact assessment, but unfortunately, the core data that you need for impact and assessment, like rule of origin, what product is coming into your country through the FTA route and normal route. I can bring my product into India through any of the two routes, right? FTA route, I can use my tariff, and I can bring it without using the tariff. So
Right.
that kind of data is, many countries are now started giving those data in public domain. We haven't yet produced those detailed data. So both inside and outside, you, when you bring in a product and when you export a product, you actually tick mark whether you are using. So in some cases you have more than one FTA. So let's say Singapore, I have a Singapore agreement, I have a ASEAN agreement. So which agreement I am using? So it is a very interesting thing, but that data is not out in public domain for our case.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
some
what we have seen so far, I won't say there has been assessment. I mean, what we have seen so far is a compilation of headline numbers, and a compilation of headline numbers won't give you the insights that are required for credible action. So, what I'm talking about now, it is high time, as you mentioned, that we need to have a strategic thread running across all these FTAs, and that strategic thread also has to be worked out, keeping in mind the larger geopolitical interest and geopolitical dynamics, which are also changing very fast. Uh, the other thing is that we do need a very comprehensive, in depth, rigorous assessment of how our different FTAs have worked and what kind of course correction could be needed. When we look for the strategic thread, we need to have that informed understanding about how our FTAs have worked. I think you have shared a lot of interesting details, and I'm sure the audience will find this very beneficial. This may be a little heavy on listening, but I think what you have said are very useful. People don't get to read them in usual newspaper reporters. Uh, and for those who follow trade policy and geopolitics, I think they will find it very useful. Thank you very much again for your time, Arpita. To our audience, thank you for watching this video. Share it, spread the word around, subscribe if you haven't, and keep coming back. Thank you.